Hi, I'm Cole.
And I'm Grace. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Today we're going all in on one of history's most, fascinating thinkers, Norbert Wiener. This was a mind that truly redefined our understanding of machines, brains, even society itself. He laid the groundwork for fields like artificial intelligence and information theory way before they were even, a whisper in public discourse. What were the profound conceptual breakthroughs he delivered? And maybe, what was it truly like to be the person who wrestled with these huge ideas?
Yeah, and what we've tried to do for you in this deep dive is really pull out the most important insights from everything we could get our hands on. We looked at his own words from his autobiographies, analyses of his work, and some key academic papers, too. Our mission really is to understand not just his groundbreaking contributions, but also the profound ethical questions he grappled with. And these questions resonate more powerfully today than maybe ever before. We'll explore not just what he discovered, but why it mattered, and how his really intense personal journey profoundly shaped his ideas about communication and control.
Okay, so to truly understand the groundbreaking mind of Norbert Wiener, we have to go back to his childhood, right? Which sounds, intensely unconventional. It was like this crucible of learning that, forged a genius, but also cast a long shadow on his personal development. He was born in Columbia, Missouri, 1894, educated at home with an intensity that sounds almost unbelievable today. His father, Leo Wiener, was this brilliant but pretty formidable professor, taught him with what Norbert himself described as a combative style, apparently using phrases like Rinvi, which means brute, and easel, or ass, when Norbert made mistakes. He later described this whole experience as essentially emotional abuse.
Wow. Yeah, it's clear this unique upbringing, while incredibly stimulating intellectually. I mean, think about it. College before 12, bachelor's before 15, PhD before 19. Right. But it also profoundly shaped his social development. He often felt clumsy, socially awkward. A square peg was his term. Partly due to his really poor eyesight, but also his father's constant critiques. And this tension, between the brilliance and the social unease, it's perfectly captured in that famous story.
Oh, the one about him coming home.
Yeah, he gets home, finds the house empty, asks a neighborhood girl why, and she just replies, "It's okay, Daddy. Mommy sent me to get you."
It makes you smile, but also feel a bit sad, doesn't it?
It really does.
That story just highlights his, extraordinary detachment from everyday social stuff. Imagine being that brilliant, but so disengaged from the immediate world that a child has to lead you home. It really underscores that square peg feeling he talked about. Even as a kid, though, his curiosities were just huge. He devoured natural history magazines, apparently haunted the Agassiz Museum. I was absolutely fascinated by scientific diagrams, problems of growth, that kind of thing. He read Jules Verne's Mysterious Island, H.G. Wells' First Men in the Moon books, which, he said introduced him to science fiction.
And his childhood home sounds like it truly was a house of learning, just bursting at the seams. His father's library was described as very Catholic and miscellaneous. So everything from Chinese dictionaries to books on the occult, detailed accounts of excavations at Troy and Tiryns.
Wow, talk about eclectic.
Exactly. And this early exposure to such a vast, varied array of subjects, it definitely fostered his unique interdisciplinary approach later on. You can see the seeds there. But, despite these incredible intellectual gifts, he faced real struggles. There was a failed histology course at Harvard.
Right.
And that botched guinea pig vivisection incident that apparently left him humiliated and deeply disturbed. These experiences, maybe, where he struggled with the practical, messy realities, might have subtly steered him towards the theoretical work. More about principles than, say, hands-on dissection.
That makes sense. But okay, how did a mind so deep in abstract math? I mean, he independently discovered what we now call Banach spaces. These really complex structures are analyzing functions.
Yeah.
How did that guy then mostly leave that field because he felt it was rather remote from that tighter texture of mathematics he liked and pivot so hard toward applied science?
Yeah, it's a fascinating pivot. It seems to have started with his early work on Brownian motion. He applied this, revolutionary mathematical tool called Lebesgue integration, which is basically a more powerful way to measure and integrate tricky functions. He applied that to study the statistical random movements of particles, sort of the jittery dance pollen does in water.
Okay, sounds pretty abstract still.
It does. But the practical significance became clear years later. It turned into a vital tool for the electrical engineer, especially when they were dealing with the shot effect. Yeah, it's that random, unpredictable electrical noise static. Basically, that was a huge headache in early broadcasting, radar, television signals. And Wiener saw that this noise had essentially the same mathematical theory as Brownian motion.
No way?
Yeah, it shows his amazing ability to connect seemingly totally different things. Random particles, radiostatic, same math underneath. He said for a while his early work was still born to the world, but, the future impact was huge.
And this knack for connecting theory to real-world, often urgent problems, it really came through during the World Wars, didn't it? He worked on ballistics in World War I at Aberdeen Proving Ground. Even enlisted as a common soldier despite his bad eyesight. Said he'd be a cheap kind of a swine if he only wanted to be an officer.
That's quite something.
Then in World War II, his focus shifted to things like designing fire control systems for anti-aircraft guns. Really critical stuff.
Exactly. And it was during this period he did incredibly innovative work on negative feedback mechanisms. His brilliant insight was realizing that machines, kind of like biological organisms, could learn to control themselves. By taking the output of a system and feeding it back as input, that's the negative feedback part, the machine could continuously correct its own actions. It made them way more precise, more autonomous, even when things were unpredictable.
So it made machines smarter, more adaptable.
Pretty much. It revolutionized control systems, made machine responses more consistent, less dependent on outside factors like friction or whatever. And crucially, he started connecting this engineering problem to how the brain works. He saw these profound similarities between the nervous system and the early digital computers, especially in their yes-no pulse transmission, their logical decision-making, where, as he put it, a later decision is made on the basis of the outcome of a number of earlier decisions.
Whoa, okay, that's a massive conceptual leap. Comparing human brains to digital computers back then, what was the reaction? Was that seen as totally out there, or did people get it?
Yeah. Well, initially, for many, it was pretty radical. I mean, comparing the complex, wet biology of the brain to these clunky, early mechanical computers, it was definitely groundbreaking, maybe a bit unsettling for some people.
I can imagine.
But for a select group, researchers from different fields, math, engineering, neurophysiology, psychology, it was like an aha moment. They saw the potential for a unified theory, something that could explain communication and control across all these different areas. They realized the principles of how systems manage information and react were kind of universal, whether it was biological or mechanical. And that shared realization, that's what really sparked the birth of this new field.
Okay, so bringing all these threads together, ballistics, nerves, machines, human behavior, how did Wiener pull these disparate observations into something truly revolutionary?
Well, in the mid-1940s, he synthesized these ideas. This led to what he called the birthplace of the new science of cybernetics. And he defined it precisely as the theory of communication and control wherever it may be found, whether in the machine or in the living being.
Communication and control. Everywhere.
Exactly. His genius was seeing that concepts like memory, which used to be just psychological or biological, could now be seen as information storage in machines, too. And feedback, from electronics, where a system adjusts based on its own output. He showed that was happening in our nervous systems all the time. He even introduced the bit, that simple but profound yes or no choice, which became the fundamental building block for all digital information, computer or neuron.
So the bit came from him. Wow.
Fundamentally, yes. He also observed that brain waves are like a mixture of very varied phenomena from a computing machine, and we'd need a kind of Rosetta Stone to decipher them. He was hunting for that universal grammar of control.
When he wasn't just thinking about this stuff, he was kind of mentally building it too, right? He had early ideas about digital computers using a binary scale-based 2 with punched cards, presence or absence of a whole, long before it was really practical. And he even pictured magnetic tape, a thin magnetic layer on a non-magnetic material for storing info, years before the tech existed.
Absolutely. He later mentioned he was right about that kind of apparatus. Something like 10 years before the techniques to prove my ideas were developed. Just shows how far ahead his thinking was.
But this work also led him straight into some really profound ethical dilemmas. He saw the atomic bomb not just as ending the war, but as heralding a new world and new possibilities. He really wrestled with the moral problems of a scientist, to the point where he actually considered suppressing his ideas in the work I had done on cybernetics because he worried about misuse. He sensed this desire of the gadgeteer to see the wheels go round and had a deep distrust of human beings. That's incredibly heavy. Was there a counter-argument to that pessimism back then? Did others think the benefits would obviously outweigh the risks? Or was he pretty alone in worrying so deeply?
That's a great question, and you have to remember, this field was so new, so speculative back then. Wiener's ethical concerns were incredibly prescient. While many of his colleagues were certainly excited by the potential, yeah, few were grappling with the moral weight quite as explicitly or deeply as he was.
So he was kind of an outlier in that sense.
Somewhat, yeah. Especially in his really profound philosophical worry about machines potentially replacing humans in decision-making roles. Of course, the whole societal impact of automation became a huge debate later, but he was there early. He believed our task, and he borrowed this idea from Kierkegaard, was like swimming upstream against a great torrent of disorganization to try and establish arbitrary enclaves of order and system. And he noted these enclaves, these pockets of order, will not remain there indefinitely by any momentum of their own after we have once established them. It requires constant effort.
His own life experiences also really shaped his views on societal prejudice, it seems. He mentioned not being aware of anti-Semitic prejudice growing up, but later, after discovering his own Jewishness more powerfully, he came to see prejudice as part of this broader pattern. Groups in power seeking to keep the good things of the world for itself and to push down those other people.
Right. And this links directly to why his ideas are so relevant now. Wiener pointed out that the idea that information can be stored in a changing world without an overwhelming depreciation in its value is false.
Meaning information isn't static?
Exactly. For Wiener, information is more a matter of process than of storage. It's an ongoing stream of influences and interactions. And this insight resonates so powerfully with today's discussions about AI ethics, data privacy, algorithmic bias. If information is this dynamic process, it challenges the simple idea that just getting consent once for data use is enough. Like one expert pointed out in the source material, consent is a bit of a red herring if governments or big systems have fundamental duties to people under their authority, whether they explicitly agreed or not. Wiener's view pushes us to think about the continuous, evolving nature of how we interact with information and the systems processing it, and therefore our ongoing responsibilities.
Norbert Wiener's life, then, was this incredible testament to interdisciplinary thinking, but also a really stark reminder of the responsibilities that come with scientific breakthroughs. He saw so many of the challenges we're facing today, with AI and automation coming down the track. He even foresaw how current AI programs are not obliged to make such decisions as we should have made or would be acceptable to us.
Absolutely. His call for scientists to be citizens of the world, his belief that knowledge is most valuable when understood and applied, it just hits home right now. He reminds us that the battle for learning is significant and not the victory, that real progress needs constant effort to create that order in what he saw as a basically chaotic universe.
So as you reflect on this deep dive, maybe consider this.
Yeah.
In a world that's increasingly shaped by the very principles, Wiener uncovered principles of communication, control, information flow. How can we make sure that the systems we build truly serve the human use of human beings, rather than just, prophets or what he called the worship of the machine as a new brazen calf? Something to think about.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. It really helps us grow. See you next time.